a view of all of my different media files. Here I have a dedicated cutting view, which makes it even easier and quicker to cut your different video clips. Here you have your standard editing view, but also if I want to add any VFX, I have a Fusion page where here I could add all these different effects, and I have a node view where I can start pulling them together. Over here, I also have access to colors. The color view in DaVinci Resolve is one of the industry-leading ways that you can set color on your video. Down below, I also have access to something called Fairlight Audio, and this is a super powerful tool that you can use to adjust the audio on your projects. With DaVinci Resolve, they bring together multiple what could be standalone applications all into one interface. So as you're pulling together your project, you can very quickly jump between, say, the editing view and then the VFX view using that clip. Out of all of the video editors that we looked at today, arguably DaVinci Resolve has some of the most advanced functionality. In terms of another application that's similar to DaVinci Resolve, you have HitFilm Pro, and then you also have Adobe Premiere. Those are comparable to what DaVinci Resolve offers. But what's great about DaVinci Resolve is it's entirely free to start using, and only some of the features are behind a paywall. Overall, DaVinci Resolve is an excellent choice, and that's why I use it as my primary editor. Although the one downside is it has a very steep learning curve. In fact, anytime I use this video editor, I feel like I'm constantly learning new things about it. But that's also what makes it so exciting. What you can do with this tool is pretty much limitless. We've looked at a lot of fantastic and free video editors today, but I did want to call out some other noteworthy free video editors beyond the 5 that we already looked at. One of them is the VSDC video editor, and this is also a freemium video editor, so you get most of the core functionality for free, but then a few items are behind a paywall. This is also a good option. There's also HitFilm Express, and this is similar to DaVinci Resolve in terms of what you can do. This also follows a freemium model where you get most functionality for free, and then you can upgrade if you want to unlock more functionality. And lastly, another great video editor is called VideoPad, and this is made by NCH Hardware. Now, it is free for home use, but you do get an annoying notification that tells you and always reminds you that you're on the free version. There are also some limitations, like you could only insert so many audio tracks, they limit the number of plugins, but once again, for a free video editor, this also works fairly well. Alright, well that was a quick look at my favorite free video editors. Let me know down below in the comments, which one are you going to use moving forward? If you want to see more videos like this in the future, please consider subscribing. Alright, well that's all I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed, and as always, I hope to see you next time. Bye.
Shoulder, neck, lower back, leg, arm, feeling good. So long past relieve the pain.
Loco, my skin is strong. Every day I make it stronger. Advanced Genifique Serum, the power of 30 million pre- and probiotic fractions in every dropper. Layer by...
Hi everyone, Kevin here. Today, I want to show you how you can use CapCut to edit your videos. CapCut is What?
What's up guys, this is Karak Code and welcome back to a brand new video. In this video I'm going to show you guys on how to learn programming for absolutely free. Now before we start this video, there are some things you guys should know about this. First and foremost, you don't need any experience or knowledge to learn programming whatsoever. So you can be a complete novice and not know any sort of code or anything about computers, that doesn't matter. In this case, you guys can learn for free and easily. The second thing is, you don't need to pay a single cent for this, and it will always be free. There are those services where you sit down on the computer and you're learning something, and then you notice like a week later, the trial ended, and then you have to pay. That's not going to happen. Again, this is completely free, so you don't have to worry about that. So, with that being said, why should you learn to code or to program? It's simple. When you guys learn programming, you can become a web developer and later on a full stack developer. So you can be sitting at home on a computer, drinking your coffee, learning the code, and a couple months later, you go on the online web and you go to freelancing sites like Upwork.com, and then you start making money and you help people out and you get paid for working at home. I know countless of people my age and younger than me that are 16 making hundreds and even thousands of dollars a month, so it's all worth it. How do you get started? I'm going to show you guys that right now. It's a free website that you guys can see down in the description link below called freecodecamp.org. Now I'm going to go ahead and show you guys this, but real quick, just so you guys know as a disclaimer, I do not own the site and I am not affiliated with the site. I personally use this website to learn code myself, which is why I'm spreading the word and spreading the knowledge to you guys. So with that being said, let's begin. Okay, so we're here at freecodecamp.org. Now to start, it's simple. All you guys gotta do is click the orange start coding button right here. And from there, you guys can go ahead and continue with Google or with Facebook or with email, it doesn't matter. I'm gonna go ahead and just for this example, put in the temp email just to show you guys. You can do the same thing. Put in an email address, and then put the code in that you get from the email. And then click submit code and continue the free code camp. And from there, all you guys are gonna do is click on the go to coding curriculum. Once you guys are on the coding curriculum, you're going to get 3 sections of the screen. The guide section, the editor section on the center, and the live production section on the right side of the screen. So following the left side of the screen, you guys are going to get a tutorial, and then you're going to get a little challenge. You guys are going to have to pass the challenge. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and have to do an H1 element and type in hello world. That's what it's asking you to do. Run the test. You can see we did it, and then we go to the next challenge. The next challenge, again, you just gotta follow the instructions. This time, we have to do an H2 element and do a cat photo app text. So do that, and you guys get the idea. Basically, what you guys want to do is make sure you follow the instructions carefully. I highly recommend you guys get a notebook and take notes along the way. It does get very easy. It is very easy to start with, but it will get more and more challenging. And if you guys are getting stuck while doing this, you don't have to worry. You can click on get a hint and it'll give you guys a hint on what to do. Or if you're absolutely stuck and you want to see how you can do it, how you can pass it, then you can watch a video and it'll tell you exactly what you did wrong and show you the right way. And that's pretty much it. So in conclusion, we learned that there's a program you guys can use, and it does look simple at first, but it progresses and gets more difficult. So you guys are responsible for sitting through the lessons and trying to check off each of the lessons you guys learned, beginning with HTML, and then CSS, visual design, and eventually JavaScript. There's hundreds and hundreds of countless of hours of free learning you guys can get with this. You're going to be sitting there and thinking about the challenge. You're going to be like, wow, this is very difficult. How do I move on to the next challenge? So you really have to test yourself and take notes, as I mentioned. It will really help you out. But at the end of the day, it was all worth it. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I really hope it helped you guys out. If you have any comments or suggestions on what videos you guys want me to do next, go ahead and comment them below. And with that being said, I'll see you guys next time.
So you want to be a software engineer at Google? Go to algoexpert.io. Pick a question.
Read the prompt. Write some code. Run your code. Write some more code. Run your code again. Get stuck? Check some hints.
Hey everyone, my name is YK and I'm the founder of this YouTube channel CS Dojo, and I'm also a former software developer at Google. And this is my new series, Python tutorial for absolute beginners, and this is my video number 1, what are variables? So this series is going to be good for complete beginners who've never done any programming before, as well as someone who's done some programming before, whether it's Python or any other language, but wants to learn more about Python. So in this video, I'm going to go through a number of different things. First of all, what is Python and what can you do with it? And then I'm going to explain how to install Python on your computer and then set up a development environment. We're going to use something called Jupyter Notebook throughout this series. And then I'm going to explain how to use the print function and what are variables and how to use them. And by the end of this video, if you have two variables storing different things, you'll be able to swap the content within those two variables with each other. And I'm going to put an outline of this video in the comment section below, so you don't have to watch the whole thing if you don't want to. Oh, and before we get started, if you want to make sure that you don't miss my future tutorial videos, sign up to my newsletter, which is available in the description below. So just quickly, what is Python and what can you do with it? It's one of the most popular programming languages out there, and it's used at smaller companies as well as larger companies, including Google. And many universities use Python as the introductory programming language in their computer science courses. And one advantage of Python is that it's fairly easy to learn because it has fairly simple syntax. It's used for many different applications, including websites' backend code, which is the code that runs on your server, as opposed to the code that runs on your device, whether it's a phone or a laptop. And it's also popular for data analysis and scientific research purposes. Okay, so let's now go ahead and install Python on your computer. Usually when people develop a program using Python or any other language for that matter, they usually use something called IDE, which stands for Integrated Development Environment. It's an environment that includes everything you need pretty much to develop a program. It has a nice text editor in which you can write your code, and then the ability to run your program, as well as something called a debugger, which allows you to quickly get rid of all the bugs in your program. And if you want to use an IDE to follow my series, I'd personally recommend PyCharm's Community Edition. So in this series, instead of using a traditional IDE, I decided to use something called Jupyter Notebook. So Jupyter Notebook is an environment for writing and testing your program quickly, and it's actually popular with the scientific community and for data analysis purposes. But I decided to use Jupyter Notebook throughout this series because it's very simple and easy to install Jupyter Notebook through something called Anaconda, and it's fairly easy to use as well. So here's the way Jupyter Notebook works. There are two components to Jupyter Notebook. First of all, when you launch Jupyter Notebook on your computer, you might see a command line interface like this. This represents the Jupyter Notebook server. You can think of it sort of like the core of Jupyter Notebook, and you don't have to worry that much about how it works exactly, but just remember that if you close this window, maybe accidentally, Jupyter Notebook might stop working. So just be careful about that. Now, when you launch Jupyter on your computer, you might also see a browser window or tab showing up, whether it's Chrome, Firefox, Safari, or anything else. And it'll probably be at the URL localhost colon 8888 or something like that, and it'll be connected to the Jupyter Notebook server. This browser window or tab is basically the user interface for Jupyter Notebook, and you can write and execute your code here, but it's actually executed on the Jupyter Notebook server. Again, you don't have to worry that much about how it works exactly, but this is just an overview. Now to install Python and Jupyter Notebook, we're going to use something called Anaconda. Anaconda is something called a package manager, which allows you to install many programs at once. This particular package manager, Anaconda, is actually used for installing math and science libraries, but you don't have to worry about that. The only thing you need to know is that when you install Anaconda, it comes with Python and Jupyter Notebook. So you don't have to install Python or Jupyter Notebook separately on your computer. Let's now install Python and Jupyter through Anaconda. Go to anaconda.org and then click Download Anaconda and select whatever platform you're using, whether it's Windows, Mac, or Linux. I'm using Mac here, so I'm going to click Mac OS here, and there are two options here, Python 3 point something or Python 2 point something. Make sure to use Python 3 point something because we're going to use Python 3 instead of Python 2 throughout this course. So click Download and then save this file wherever you want to save it. And once this file is downloaded, just open it and then click Continue, 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 agree with everything, and then select Install for me only or install on a specific disk. It doesn't matter which one you choose, and then click Install. And this process will probably take a while for you. Once this process is done, you should see something like the installation was completed successfully. Once you see that, just click Close and you're all set. To launch Jupyter, you need to launch an application called Anaconda Navigator. Just launch that in the usual way you launch any other application, and then find Jupyter Notebook and click Launch. Like I said before, you should see a browser tab or window opening up, and it should be at the URL localhost :8888 or something like that. Okay, let's now create our first program. First, go to whatever the folder you want to create your first program in. I'm going to go to Desktop, and once you click it, you can see that my current location is Desktop because it's shown at the top right here. Before you create your first program here, I personally recommend that you create a new folder. So I just went to my desktop, I clicked right click and then new folder. I'm going to call this folder Python Tutorial 1. And once you create that folder, you should see in the Jupyter Notebook Interface 2, click that, and you see that the current location is Python Tutorial 1 within desktop right here at the top. To create a new file or a new notebook file, as they say, just click New at the top right hand corner and then click Python 3. And 3. So a new notebook has been created here. Change the name of this notebook from untitled to, let's say, what are our variables. Click rename, and once you do that, if you go back to desktop and the folder that we just created, Python Tutorial 1, you'll see a new file, whatarevariables.ipynb. And .ipynb is just an extension for Jupyter Notebook. Now in Jupyter Notebook, there's something called a cell. Each cell represents a set of code, and the box you're looking at right now is one cell. So you can type in any Python code here. For example, print parentheses double quotes hello world. And when you run this cell using this button at the top, it executes all the code within the cell. So let's run this cell, and you see that the string hello world is printed. So this text hello world is something called a string. It's usually enclosed by either double quotes or single quotes, and it's basically just a set of characters. So assuming that this is your first time coding in your life, I'm going to explain this line a little bit more carefully. So this says print whatever's in the parentheses, these two parentheses, and that happens to be hello world, the string. And when you run it, again, it's printed right below this cell, hello world. And the important thing to note here is that if you don't type in the exact set of characters that you see on the screen, it might not go right. So for example, if you forget to close the parentheses and run the cell, you'll get an error. And if you use, for example, curly brackets instead of regular parentheses, you also get an error. And if you forget to close the quotation marks, it's the same thing. So let's try using this print function a little bit more. In this cell that you see right here in the green box, you can type in print double quotes more string. And actually, instead of using double quotes, you can also use single quotes in Python, and then you can run this cell and the string more string is printed. So you can use single quotes and double quotes pretty much interchangeably in Python. And then you can also print not just a string, but also a number. So you can say print parentheses 3, and then when you run this cell, the number 3 is printed. And you could also have multiple lines within the same cell as well. So in this cell, you can write print, let's use double quotes here, more string, and then print 3. So when you run this cell, these two lines are executed one by one. So you see more string and 3 printed just one after another. So let's now dive into our main topic here, namely what are variables. Before I explain what are variables exactly in Python, I'm going to show you some sample code. You can write a equals 1, and what this means is that assign this value 1, this number, to the variable named a. You can think of it sort of like the variable a containing the value 1. That's not 100% technically accurate, as I'll explain later, but that's one way to think about it. So when you run the cell, you won't see anything printed this time, but the variable a now contains the value 1. Or a more technically accurate way of thinking about it is that the variable a refers to the value 1. And you can check what's inside the variable a by printing the variable with print parentheses a. And note here that there are no double quotes or single quotes around this character a, and that's because a is not a string, it's a variable. And when you run the cell, you see the value a is referring to, which is 1. And you can do the same thing with different variables. So you can write b equals 2. So the convention here is you write b space and then equal space and 2. This line says assign the value to the variable b. And when you run the cell again, the variable b refers to the value 2 now. So if you haven't, for example, seen this code, and if you want to know what's inside the variable, or what the variable refers to, you can write, just like before, print parentheses b, no single quotes or double quotes, run this cell with this button right here, and then you'll see the value b is referring to. Just like before, we can write multiple lines within a single cell right here by writing print parentheses a, print parentheses b, and when you run this cell, you'll see 1 and 2. So 1 is what a is referring to, and 2 is what b is referring to. So a variable doesn't necessarily refer to a number. It could refer to a string. So if you write, for example, c equals either double quotes or single quotes, hello there, and when you run the cell, c now refers to the value or the string hello there, and when you print c, you should see hello there printed. So I just ran the cell and the string hello there has been printed. So let's now quickly talk about what variables are in Python. When you write a equals 1 in a different language, for example C or C++, the correct way to think about it might be as a box. So you have a box A containing the value 1, but in Python, this is not the accurate way to think about it. The more accurate way to think about it is that A is more like a name tag, and this can refer to any value you want. And when you say A equals 1, you're saying A refers to the value 1 now. These two ways of thinking about it, they might not seem that different right now, but it's going to be more important later. And in Python, you can create a new variable by writing, as we saw, b equals 2, and this says the name b, or the variable b, now refers to the value 2. And just like you saw, a variable can refer to a string as well. So if you write c equals hello there, you're saying the variable C refers to the string hello there. Once you master that basic concept, you'll be able to move on to a slightly more advanced topic. Let's say you run these lines of code, and then you want to run more code. For example, d equals 2. Then what happens is the variable d, of course, refers to the value 2, which the variable b also refers to. So it's totally possible for 2 or more variables in Python to point to the same value, in this case 2. And then it's also possible for you to reassign an existing variable to another value. So if you write b equals 1, after executing this line of code, b equals 2, after this line, b refers to 2, of course, but after writing b equals 1, b refers to 1, which a also refers to. And you can even reassign an existing variable, for example b, which once referred to a number, 1 right here, to something else, for example a string. So if you write, for example, b equals double quotes is c, we should see 1 for a and hello there for c. What happens if we write f equals a? F should now refer to whatever a refers to. So if we print f, we should see the number 1 printed. And what happens if we assign a to 2? Then the value of a should now be 2, and then the value of f should stay, as I said earlier, at 1. Okay, now I'm going to give you a quick practice problem to work on in order to solidify your understanding of variables. And to do that, go back to the previous tab of Jupyter Notebook, the navigation menu. And if you already closed that tab, just open localhost colon 8888 or just relaunch Jupyter Notebook. And then go back to the same folder as before. We had Python tutorial 1. Click new in the top right corner, click Python 3 again. And let's rename this notebook by clicking untitled and by changing it to swapping to variables. And here's the problem. You're given 2 variables. Let's say v1 equals first string in double quotes and v2 equals second string again in double quotes. How can you swap the values within these 2 variables with each other? The easiest way to solve this problem is just to write v1 equals second string and then v2 equals first string. But this might not be the best solution, because if you had a much longer